Hey everybody, I recently posted a video about stacking up layers of familiarity when learning a language and how you need to stack up enough layers before you feel comfortable in learning certain material. Today I'd like to follow on from that by talking about a concept which I call the triangulation of vocabulary. When you go to learn a language and when you're using a particular resource, if you see a new vocabulary element, a new word or something like that, it's very much like seeing a single data point, right? And if the word is out of context, it's very weak. It's a very small point, right? If it's in context, it's much stronger, but it's still just a single point. And what you need to do to make that stronger is you need to go and see that same element in other places. This is why it's so important to use multiple resources when learning a language, right? If you can get, it's very easy to get stuck into using a particular resource, a particular reader, some particular text, and you can be pretty familiar with all of the vocabulary and the elements in that text, but until you go and see those somewhere else, they don't really stick. And it's amazing because a lot of times when you do actually go to another resource and you see something, you recognize it from a resource you've been using before. And that kind of cross-referencing is what makes the legs of a triangle, right? So this is what we're going to talk about. I'm going to show you this in just a second. So you want to have multiple data points for the same vocabulary items. And this is what then makes them strong in your mind and in your memory, right? And if they're in context, obviously they're going to be much stronger as points than if they are in a list and out of context. So let's have a look at how this works visually. Let's say you see a new word in a resource and it shows up in a list. Okay, there it is. Word. Okay. It's a very small point. Okay. If you see that word in context, let's say you're reading a story and you see it, it's going to be much bigger. Okay. But it's still just a point. Word in context. Okay. So it's a big point, but it is still just a point. When you compare it to this one, it's stronger, but it's still just a point. What you need is you need to go and see that same data point in other places. And then what happens is, let's say you see it in text and you've seen it in a resource, you start to draw the connections between these points and they start to form a network of knowledge. And the associations you then create between these points helps make a very strong structure in your mind. Okay, so visually this is how it works. So it's not just 3 points, right? And then that's it. What happens is sometimes you get really big ones and sometimes they're just like little tiny dots. But for all of these, your mind will, when you recognize something across resources or across texts or across instances of the language, your mind will instantly, and without you having to do anything really, will draw associations to the elements that you've already seen somewhere else. And that will create strength in terms of the learning in your mind. So this is a process that happens naturally, but it's one that you can sort of actively seek out if you're aware of it happening. So if you know that you need 3 points as a minimum in order for a vocabulary item to stick, then you can actively seek out that same vocabulary element in different contexts. And that's where you can sort of enhance your language learning. So as you go and work on learning a language, you want to be aware of this kind of concept of triangulation. Don't get stuck down in one resource. Constantly look to other texts, other audio, listen to the radio, watch television, so that you can consciously seek out this kind of triangulation. If it becomes a conscious and active process, it can happen a lot faster than if you just kind of wait for it to happen. So be aware of this, and if you're feeling frustrated by not actually picking up vocabulary just from seeing it once, it doesn't work that way, right? You need to see it in multiple contexts and in multiple locations. And even if you see it within multiple contexts within the same location, it's still much stronger if you see it in multiple locations. Thanks very much for watching. Please check out linguisticator.com. Check out our blog for more videos and more posts on language learning topics. And like, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff. See you soon. Thanks.